With the recent disappointment of being dropped by Spotify, something which we're told you're distraught about, Meghan, there are concerns that you might struggle for money in the future. And although many have claimed that you are a long way from poor, so it's not something you'll have to face anytime soon, you have discovered categorically that churning out quality content on demand is not something that you are skilled enough for. My question for you is, what are your thoughts on money in general? What is your relationship with money?
Well, I'm very glad you asked that question, Cobalt, because money, or moolah, is very close to our hearts, That's why we started up a charity, because we're always trying to raise some dosh.
We are very, very passionate about money, very passionate, In fact, I would say it was in the top echelon of things that were most important to me, important to Harry and I, but mainly me. I would say that, it's alongside, but maybe just a little bit below, something like, enforced equity and social justice programs. It's not as important as that, but it's a little bit higher than, say, love and family.
The great thing about money is that you can spend it, in exchange for desired goods and services.
Well, thank you, John Maynard Keynes. But let's just for a moment dig into your relationship with money. Do you see yourself as having a healthy one?
Oh, yeah, sure. I have a deep admiration and respect for money. It's a genuine affection.
Well, sometimes the love of money is the opposite to having a healthy relationship with it. Would you say it had power over you? A power that could make you do things that were principally and morally, vulgar?
I would describe myself as a money realist, right? I don't worship money, but, I'm not oblivious to its evident power. It's like, it's got the power to feed children, grow food, build houses, prevent climate disasters. And it's got the power to turn otherwise unattractive men into real hunks.
Huh?
Yeah, you've got to acknowledge money and, huddle near it for warmth,
Oh, that reminds me. How is Mr. Getty?
Oh, well, what can I say? His breath gets shallower each time I see him, and that's exciting news. Oh, and I love cards too, cards, debit or credit, and especially those tap-in cards. You just tap the little machine and you pay for your muffin. It's absolutely great, the wonders. And in terms of money, philosophically, Harry and I are very much anti-cash. We would like to see the proliferation of, contactless card payments, replace all the usage of traditional cash in the very near future.
Oh, why would that be? And how would you reply to those who say that cash is the last bastion of financial freedom left in the world?
Freedom is nothing but a right-wing talking point and a white supremacist dog whistle. That's right, Harry. We need more monitoring of people's expenditure. That way we can truly find out whether they're up to anything nefarious or not. Yeah. And if they're up to no good, their account can be suspended or frozen, so they can't, buy food or pay rent. Yeah, and that would teach them to go against the modern narratives, climate change or LGBTQ or, gender identity. Then we see how free they want to be in their opinions on these things, which of course that freedom is just a smokescreen for their vulgar and bigoted beliefs.
Well, I can honestly and sincerely say you taught us a lesson about the importance of cash. I do hope everyone was paying attention.
I want to suggest that at the end of the video you leave a comment.
An insider has claimed, Meghan, that you've been advised to ditch Prince Harry if you want to recover what is left of your working life.
Oh, nonsense. Meghan and I are like salt and pepper. We go together. Isn't that right, Meghan?
Yeah.
That's right, Meghan. Utter tosh. Our appeal comes mainly from our togetherness, So why on earth would we ever want to break that up?
Yeah, well, we are very different, from different backgrounds, and we got different skill sets.
Yeah, we're different, but diversity is our strength.
And have you been advised as such, Meghan?
Yeah, okay, how should I answer that? Well, we all get advice in life, from friends and from advisors, and some of that advice is indisputably good, and some isn't.
Okay, how about this particular advice?
Yeah, well, that's a complex question with many ambiguities, bound up within it.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes you got to look at the, disparities in terms of talent. That's, it's core to any partnership or relationship, and then analyze, whether ultimately the enterprise is being negatively affected by those, disparities.
Well, you appear to be dancing around this question, Meghan, much like a naked pride parader around a public water fountain.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, okay, then yeah, it has been mentioned that long term, if I want to make the most of my, incredible talent.
Sorry, what was that?
Incredible talent.
Right.
Then I'm going to have to make some difficult decisions, real difficult decisions. I mean, some people live with, a wart or skin tag for years, and sometimes they even learn to have a little bit of, affection, a little bit of affection for that gross thing on their arm, growing on their arm.
Yeah, I had a skin tag once. Steve.
But that doesn't mean that you won't cut it off the first real opportunity you get, the first safe and profitable opportunity that comes about.
Does this mean you're considering going solo on the career front rather than being part of Team Sussex, a duo with less gravitas than Keir Starmer and Lindsey Graham's slapstick routine?
Potentially, yes.
That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, and I suppose you never saw it coming.
Well, I thought we'd been doing well. I mean, gripping documentary, enthralling podcast series, stereotypes or something, wasn't it?
Archetypes.
Stereotypes. Archetypes? Stereotypes.
Archetypes.
Stereotypes. As you please.
Hey, no. Harry does not get to speak for me. He doesn't even really speak for himself, actually. My podcast was called Archetypes, which explored a rich, plethora of themes, which were all connected under, the overarching theme of becoming archetypes that have sometimes become obstacles and barriers to our personal growth.
Yeah, and there was some juggling. Well, how would you answer Mr. Simon Satsuma, who likes fish but not tuna, when he suggests that although Harry is indeed an ill fit for show business and media, that you, Meghan, are equally unladen by the responsibility of greatness, as he puts it, and that your failure to succeed in a realm that requires talent will continue and drive you into the plotting of stunts, which, as we know, is indeed the last refuge of notoriety.
In this video.
You really shouldn't listen to all this gossip, Kobold. We're as happy as a bottle of Bud Light in a customer's hand. Well, insiders have told Radar Online that, and I quote, they are taking time apart to try and figure out what hit them.
Yeah, we know what hit us.
Yeah, I think that source also said that we were attempting to become closer by spending time apart.
Yes, I can imagine how that would be a suitable upgrade to actually being with each other. But I must return to Meghan's point. We know what hit us. Well, Harry doesn't know how to behave in front of cameras.
Yes, I do. I always carry everything off stylishly and cool.
Things seem to have run their course, right? We don't seem to be complimenting each other like we once were.
You mean his royal status is no longer carrying you?
Yeah, I don't really like to dwell on things, and I've never liked that being trapped in that feeling of, disenfranchised dispowerment, right?
Possibly, but it sounds like waffle to me.
Oh, I love waffles. Because things have been going really well for me for a long time now. I've been on a good run. I rose up, from nothing, from an unknown, to, add a little bit of elegance to the otherwise, garish Deal or No Deal. Then I got some like minor roles in some small films, and then I got some like bigger roles in some tiny films. And then of course I landed my role in Suits, which became pretty much an instant American classic, a drama classic.
Never seen it.
No, same. That's kind of like a prime example of what I'm talking about, But anyway, before we do that, let's get back to when my life was going really well. And after Suits, another big change in my life came. Out of literally nowhere. Once again, I became one of the most talked about individuals in the world. I was on TV, I was in papers, in magazines, literally out of nowhere. I was given a really famous interview,
Yeah, and we bashed them up good.
Yeah, I became one of the biggest stars, names in the whole world. People were talking about me and they wanted to know me, and people even started parodying me, doing parodies of me, which everyone knows is like one of the greatest compliments.
Not always.
And all this, culminated in me being like the central focus, star of like a worldwide televised event, in a church, in a chapel in Windsor. And it had a celebrity guest list, and literally every member of the royal British family was there in attendance.
You mean our wedding?
And that's when my life peaked, right? It really peaked then. It's never got as good as that since. It's been a slight, I've had good moments since then. I've had good moments when I, done interviews or podcasts or documentaries. When I made them and released them, I felt really good. But not after the reviews came in.
Yeah, it's that pesky thing called the audience.
So ever since my big moment in the church,
Our wedding?
it's been a steady, and sometimes not so steady, decline. It's like objectively, this has been the worst period of my life, since my triumphant, rise to stardom from like literally unknown to being like the focal point of a royally attended, event in a world famous chapel in Windsor.
Yeah, our wedding, Meghan.
So I've got to think things through, right? Because Harry has been like literally the only major change. Living with Harry has been the major change in my life since those peak years, and I think I need some time to like consider, right? Properly consider how things have been affecting me.
Yes, but have you ever considered that it isn't just because of Harry's deficit in showbiz talent and charm, but it is also, and I say this with all sincerity, that you are impressively unappealing? Have you ever considered that?
Well, that's something I've been considering more and more recently.
Well, have you also considered how stupid you are?
Well, I'm not clever enough to consider two things at once.
Yeah, well, you can say that again.
I'm not clever enough to consider two things at once.
You're such an immature doofus sometimes.
I know you are, but what am I then?
We just thought it would be a quicker and more, appropriate way of getting to the UK, after the sad news of the Queen's passing.
Well, thank you for confirming that this story is indeed true. I, for one, thought there were limits to your behaviour, lines below which you would not sink. But it appears not, as this action was astonishingly crude, ridiculous, hubristic, and insulting, all in equal measure.
No, I was just distraught with grief, and I just wanted to get over there, well, over here, I suppose, as quick as possible.
And in a mode of transport that was more befitting, our status as the only, UK royals living in the US.
A former colony, don't you know?
Yes, Harry, what an excellent way to ingratiate yourself to your fellow countrymen.
And even though, I'm thoroughly ashamed to be an American, but I still thought it had enough respect for us, indeed for itself, to let us borrow Air Force One, just for a short time, to get to where we were needed.
But Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden apparently vetoed the idea.
Well, rumours are that they didn't trust you not to go snooping around and then leak what you found to the press.
Oh,
Why on earth would they think that?
Well, you do have form.
She's not a real doctor, don't you? Dr. Jill Biden, not a real doctor.
No, I wouldn't play that game if I were you two.
Why not?
Well, you're not a real prince, Meghan's not a real duchess, and neither of you are real talents.
Good point. We are getting some feedback come through, right? And one of the most common criticisms seems to be that we were disrespectful somehow by not honoring the proper, solemnity of the situation, following the death of the Queen.
Yeah, and apparently it's insulting to expect the US taxpayer to fund the chauffeuring of, basic nobodies across the Atlantic.
And do you think they have a point?
No,
No?
not at all.
Probably.
Well, it does appear to a neutral observer that your immediate reaction to the death of the Queen was to try and boost your own profile. Well, had you have arrived on Air Force One, it would have, well, maybe not overshadowed the Queen's death, but it would have been a major talking point at a period where all the proper focus should have been on the Queen's legacy. Well, many people at home, and I won't read the messages because I know that Harry wells up quite easily, were quite shocked that even at a moment of profound sadness and, as you said, solemnity, that your default reaction was one of self-promotion.
If you're in the game, you've got to hustle.
Grifter's gonna grift.
The White House's swift denial of your request must indicate to you the sheer level of gall, of nerve encapsulated in your petition. I mean, the US taxpayer must be shocked to learn of your cheek. And had you have actually arrived in London at that sad time on Air Force One, well, the UK taxpayer would have never forgiven you. I mean, you would have simultaneously ruined your relationship with both countries.
Well, we are fond of efficiency.
I really don't know, right, what the big deal is. I mean, we were just two individuals who were desperate to get to our loved ones, after the passing of our matriarch, our beloved matriarch. I thought people would at least be able to see the human side of this, the human level.
But after you were refused, why didn't you go with Harry anyway?
Because if I'm not going to go on Air Force One, then I'm not going to go at all. I mean, we'll just arrive in some common old private jet? What's the point?
That was the video. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, hit the comments and the notification bell. Fabulous. Do it all. Thanks.
Returning once again to your vulgar request to use Air Force One to return to the UK after the death of the Queen, given the speed in which your entreaty was shot down, does this reflect your frosty relationship with the Bidens?
Well, not really. I mean, why would it? Moreover, what difference does it make?
Well, we have a great relationship with the Bidens. Jill and Bill, isn't it?
Joe.
I even extended an invitation to Jill Biden to attend the Invictus Games. Now, why would I have done that if our relationship were frosty?
Did she accept the invitation?
Oh, that's not the point, Cobalt. Oh, Meghan, please take over and try and talk some sense into this guy.
And I can certainly say that our relationship with the Bidens is, excellent, very, very good. We even share little in-jokes, I can definitely say that they are on Team Sussex. I even sent Dr. Jill a basket of lemons, as a gift.
Yes, I heard. What a weird thing to do.
Yeah, I once gave Meghan a Dyson Hoover for a gift. It was hilarious, wasn't it, honey?
Yeah, it was hilarious.
One of those vacuum cleaner thingies that women in tabards use to suck up all the tobacco underneath my coffee table.
Yeah, I'm sure that Dr. Jackson knows what a vacuum cleaner is, Harry.
The joke is, my good Dr. Jackson, that my Meghan, would never wear a tabard or use a vacuum cleanery thing, She has a very strong dislike, bordering on an allergy to housework.
No, he's right. I get disorientated and sick and nauseous, and sometimes a little rash comes up in my arm here. And, what are my other symptoms, Harry?
Oh, yeah, she becomes very rude and aggressive towards staff, often threatening violence.
Oh, yeah, that's it. It really messes up my system. It's really hard.
Poor thing. She needs to spend about 3 hours in her sensory deprivation tank, you know, smeared in smashed avocado all the way from the toes to the wig, you know, just to get back to her normal, criticism dispensing, interfering self.
Well, picking up on Meghan's interfering self character, you clearly have political inspirations, Meghan, although you do seem to be finding it difficult to establish yourself as influential figures.
That's not what I've been trying to do.
Well, everything does seem to appear as an opportunity to you, Meghan, such as the Air Force One request. But let's not also forget that you personally made phone calls to lobby senators in the US to change law about maternity pay, which was a clear overreach and was treated as such.
And I also once bought Meghan a gift of a book on barbecue cooking. Oh, didn't we laugh? Well, I laughed.
And considering it was so soon after your departure from the royal fold, it was very insulting to the royal family, given their long-standing position of neutrality on political matters.
What are you trying to get at here?
Spit it out, Cobalt.
Well, how many times do your aspirations need to clash with reality before you realise that every attempt you make to artificially promote yourselves as more than you are only serves to tarnish your reputation further?
I'd say about 9 or 10 times. Just want to say, at the end of the video, leave a comment, please. Thanks.
It was a snub. You know, it was a snub. It was like a deep wound in our cosmogalactic oneness, right? It was like an attack on our spiritual, nucleus.
Well, we certainly know it wasn't because the material we were producing was substandard.
Yeah, we were producing the very definition of, Emmy-worthy stuff, right? Should it have won? Well, yeah, personally, I think it should have. I think it deserved to.
Shocker.
But a nomination, right, is a given. Should have been a given, in a just world.
If you say so, I haven't been able to stomach anything you've ever produced.
Try alcohol. It helps.
So this whole, conundrum gives rise to the very real possibility that there's an orchestrated, campaign against us.
What do we have to do to get a break, This demand that you need to be skillful or insightful to produce quality content is so racist.
How so?
And I would personally like to know, who put their foot in on us, right?
I can feel a strongly worded letter coming.
Once again, I see it as my duty to remind you that you are both your own worst enemies.
No, sorry, it's not, actually, because mine's Piers Morgan.
Well, mine's Hitler.
No, mine's Hitler too. You just wait till we get home. Just wait till we get home. And Hitler's dead. So stupid. Just stop getting involved.
Huh?
Well, all the time, anyway. Jeez. So, yeah, it's become, pretty obvious to us that there is, an orchestrated campaign, right? Against our rise, our, necessary rise to the top. So, I just don't know how people live with that much darkness in their hearts, right?
Can I say something, Meghan? Well, I agree. And my Meghan is clever and genuine and 41 years old.
You are your own worst enemies because you remonstrate against honest critique, like teenage children, and then dream up campaigns against you personally to explain why you have such poor reviews. When in reality, you've been given a wholly artificial platform to ply your trade of producing patronizing piffle, perfectly plastered with pious pontifications pointlessly pondered upon.
Yeah, but what I don't get is whether you mean that in a good or a bad way.
Yeah, but that's because you're a moron.
Well, if I'm a moron, then you married a moron.
Yeah, well, that's something we can both agree on.
Sorry, wait, what? Can we start again?
Your heart is almost too pure for this planet, Cobalt, Don't you see that it's not about talent anymore?
I completely agree with that.
Let her speak.
It's all about who knows who and who likes who. And, like when I look back at my behavior in that realm, and when I think about and reflect upon my, my obvious talent, even though I do have to minus a little bit away from my appeal because of Harry.
I'm always involved in some way, in the background.
I've come to the realization that it must be a conspiracy, against me, some way, somehow, right?
Well, not necessarily, because when you let your talents and skills and charms and charisma do the talking, then...
Let her finish, Cobalt.
It's there. Okay, that campaign, it's there. It's against me, us, me, and it's preventing my organic growth into places of success and influence, right? And when that happens, it's not just me that misses out, right? It's the whole collective that is our spiritual unconscious that misses out too. It's robbed of an influential and healing figure.
Right, yes, sure. Would either of you like some jelly?
Ooh, yes, please.
Mmm.
Don't suppose you have any ice cream?
We do.
Oh!
Meghan, 30 years on and you're back on your campaign to end sexist stereotypes in advertising.
Yeah, nothing upsets me more, right, than women washing up and men mowing the lawn.
Why?
Because it indoctrinates people into believing that it's the correct way of thinking.
It does. Well done, Harry.
You famously petitioned Procter & Gamble about something very similar 30-odd years ago.
Born fighter, my Meg. She was born with big ideas and a big heart.
I was. Nicely put, Harry. One of the biggest, systemic problems we have is the, easy acceptance of these gender roles, these gender stereotypes. And, when I was thinking about the situation, I was thinking deeply about the situation, and it came to me in a flash of inspiration, right? That it's the little things. It's the little things, right?
The tiny, weeny things, Cobalt.
The little things, that you see in advertisements, right? In adverts, and the young people,
children.
No, that's offensive, Cobalt. It's young people who are nourished by chest feeders, who are brought into the world by birthing people.
It certainly is the little things, a tweak of language here, the outlawing of an expression there, and we end up mutilating children.
That's right, it's the little things. And every day young people are absorbing, advertisements that harden, that harden their preconceptions of gender and sexuality. Right? So in this little flash of inspiration that I experienced.
Sorry, do you mean recently or 30 years ago when you wrote to Procter & Gamble?
Oh, it doesn't matter, Cobalt. It almost certainly never happened.
You got to look after the pennies, right? Look after the pennies, and the pounds take care of themselves, right? If you want to change the big picture, you've got to concentrate on the small things. Small things.
So saith Meghan Markle.
Yeah, and you've got to be steadfast, right? Nothing that is contributing to these stereotypes is too small to leave alone, right?
Yeah, and no issue is too little of Meghan's business to prevent her sticking her oar in.
Sticking my oar in?
No, I just meant that you're, far-reaching in your interference, which is all for the good. The common good, of course.
Yeah, but Harry does have a point, though, Meghan. I mean, why is it your business how people advertise and what stereotypes people find acceptable or offensive?
Because we've got to stop spreading these stereotypes.
What I mean is, Meghan, if the customer base finds a certain advert, offensive or unnecessarily stereotypical, they can choose not to buy from them or use their services, can't they?
Well, yeah.
So the market will decide, and the advertising narratives will therefore be guided by that market. If the customer base finds it offensive, they'll see a decline in sales, prompting a change in strategy.
Yes, but then, where does my Meghan fit in?
Yeah.
What's she going to do if she can't tell people how to act and what to think anymore?
Well, she could try being quiet, being modest, enjoying her young family, and reflecting on how lucky she's been.
Well, yeah, that does sound nice, actually. Doesn't it, Meghan? Oh, hello. Can I speak to David, please? It's Harry. Harry, Meghan Markle, Windsor. Oh, I know he's there. Oh, then can you pass him a message, please? Yeah. Can you tell him to keep his mouth shut? Keep your mouth shut.
Somehow I just knew I should never have told Victoria secrets.
Victoria's Secret?
Victoria Beckham. And I should never have told her any secrets. I should never have done it.
They were at your wedding, weren't they?
Yeah, her dad wasn't, but they were.
Do you actually have any evidence that they leaked anything to anyone?
When you say evidence, what exactly do you mean? Because if you're talking about hard evidence, like proof, then no, none whatsoever, not a scintilla.
I just felt it, right? I could just feel it. I was at home and I was scouring the internet for some negative stories of me. And, to cut a long story short, what I heard, and I just thought, that's the Beckhams. That's Victoria and the Beckhams. They must have leaked that to the media.
Okay, and how did you deal with this belief, for which you had no proof, to ensure discretion and to maintain a temperate relationship with those who had roused your suspicion, however naked that suspicion is of actual evidence?
I rang him up and let him have it.
Ah, how diplomatic. And was that a wise move?
Well, no, wisdom never came into it.
Evidently.
I called him up and I said, we're furious. And he said, no, we're absolutely furious. And I said, we're furious. We're even more furious. To which he replied, yeah, but we're furious, times 100. So I said, yeah, but we're furious times like 1,000. And then he said,
he's furious times 1,000,000?
Were you listening in?
A lucky guess.
Yeah, to which I said, we're furious times infinity. At which point I thought I had him, But then he said, we're furious times infinity plus 1, and then put the phone down.
Yeah, but you can't get more than infinity, Infinity is like never ending.
I know, but David never has been, the sharpest knife in the drawer, has he?
Oh, how I would have loved to hear this battle of wits between you and David Beckham.
Well, don't think I'm going to let this go. He can hide all... Hello? Yeah, can I speak to David, please? It's Harry. Harry, Meghan Markle, Windsor. Oh, I know he's there. Oh, tell him he can hide all he wants. But just pass him on another message, please. Yeah. Say we're furious times infinity plus 1,000,000.
And this isn't the first time that you've developed frosty relationships with those who attended your wedding. I mean, you weren't invited to Oprah's 69th birthday bash, and the Clooneys now seem to have dropped you closer, as they are now, with the king himself.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, can I speak to George, please? Or Amal? It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's Harry. Harry, Meghan Markle, Windsor. Okay, thanks. He's just getting them. Don't worry. Hello? What do you mean he's never heard of us? No, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. What do you mean he's got another call coming through from someone in... Hey! Unbelievable!
This is starting to hurt now, Starting to hurt. Get really personal.
Well, perhaps, and this is just a suggestion, you should take yourselves less seriously and stop searching the internet for negative press.
Just got another message through from David Beckham. He says that they're furious times infinity plus infinity. Touche, David, touche.
that was the video. So it's time to hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell, and leave a comment. And if you want to see some extra videos on Patreon, there's a link in the description.